A popular saying is, nothing I.e. ever lost on the internet, but what is something you have been searching for years and you haven't found it yet? An Antique Roadshow episode where the appraiser asked the owner if they had cleaned a priceless Milanese helm. They responded, "I hit it with a little lemon pledge," and the appraiser visibly shivers. Priceless Milanese helm, formerly priceless, it sounds like. I think this is why you can't find the episode. Looks like they pulled it. In 2003, there was a commercial for I Think E-Trade where a CEO retires and hands the company over to his stoner bro grandson, whose entire press conference is him saying, "I'm so stoked, everyone dumps." The stock immediately in the ad was about how quickly you could trade using E-Trade. My family loved that commercial to the point where we had shirts made that said, "I'm so stoked." I have looked through a lot of commercial compilations in YouTube, but have still never found that ad. Didn't find the commercial, but I did find an old forum post searching for the same thing. Either you've been searching for a long time, or you're not the only one wondering. Is that the one that ended with another shot of the grandson at the press conference saying, "Why are there so many microphones?" Quote. This video I think I found on Vimeo of these guys working at a Jabon shipping facility. Apparently a customer requested a video of the process of putting together their new order for shipping. These two guys put together a great video with them dancing to Maniac by Michael Sembello. Throughout it, I'd love anyone who can find what I'm talking about. Flagged for both illegal items and a copyright flag for Maniac. Doubt you can find it unless the original uploaders have a copy they can email, edit. I know that bongs are not illegal. However, it doesn't mean that it won't be flagged for inappropriate by certain overzealous people. I know that some people in legal states have had their weed videos flagged even though by law what they were doing was legal. It just takes one person to flag it and for the uploader to decide it's not worth the hassle to fight it. What color is Groveland gray? Grandfather always talked about painting his house Groveland gray, but I can find no reference for it. Lol. I googled Groveland gray and it brought me to this old Reddit thread where you commented the same thing you've been looking for a long time. Gargoyle gray. Maybe the word got scrambled a bit in your memory? I'm guessing he didn't mean he was going to paint the house Yoda colored. There was a quote that I read on the title of a post that went something like, "Just because you've gone down 90% doesn't mean you can't go down another 90%. It's related to the stock market and can also apply to life." I've wanted to find out who said that for the longest. Was it a post from our cryptocurrency? In the thread they talk about going down another 90%, this quote. Now imagining it dropping another 90%, which it has already proven it can do. Edit. I added this post because they talk about sunk cost fallacy. This, very much, relates to relationships, work, and banking. Where the quote, "I wanted 16 candles Molly Ringwald, not pretty in pink Molly Ringwald," comes from. I'm not sure, but it sounds like a community line. I know for sure it's in the show Psych. I don't know if it originated there, but I've been re-watching the show and I remember the line. There's an animated video that's about 10 years old or so, and all I remember is that it's hilarious and I'm pretty sure it's Flash and it ends with a giant penis coming from the sky smashing the protagonist to death. Google searching for giant penis Flash smash has not produced the desired results. Take a look at the angriest cinnamon bun. A saved Reddit post which was a collection of paranormal, creepy AskReddit threads which I accidentally removed from my saved posts. This, or maybe this? You might be interested in our hub post, which is a sub that lists and categorizes AskReddit threads. You might even come across your missing thread. The Teenatory would take any web page and change it to seem like Mr. T had written it. It was so funny to do it to news sites like CNN. Well, I came to post this, and did a Ctrl+F and you had posted it. Thought it was hilarious at the time. Here's the page on archive.org. But of course it doesn't work. Similar to the BBC News in Piggin. BBC News in Piggin, yes. It is real. Photos from meetups in early 2000 from a game one used to play. I think nearly all the photos people took ended up on sites that don't exist anymore. I think nearly all the photos people took ended up on sites that don't exist anymore. It's like an odd parallel to the medieval Dark Ages. A quote from a book, maybe Lundy Bancroft, about how to get a friend out of an abusive relationship. I want the original source. I believe it was in a Q&A format that ran a bit like this in ideas, but not phrasing. Q. My friend is in an abusive relationship, but she won't allow us to help her leave it. How do we safely get her out? A. You don't. You need to offer her the opposite of what her abuser is. Choices. Allow her to socialize with whom she wishes, even her abuser, because he's probably isolating her. Forgive her for being flaky, because he may not be. Allow her to choose for herself even if you disagree with the choice, because that's the opposite of what he's doing. She has to decide to leave by herself. A super hilariously bad Phil Collins song. It's him singing in a high-pitched voice and it sounds pretty much the same all the way through. Been looking for years. I love Genesis and by extension, Phil. I need to hear this. When I was a Mormon missionary in Taiwan, I had a strange experience. We met this man. He had a wife that he had either bought or kidnapped from the Philippines. He did not speak Tagalog. She did not speak Mandarin. He spoke very bad English. She spoke mediocre English. That was the language they used to communicate. They had a baby. He introduced us to the baby and said, "This is my child." Phil Collins Huang in English. With Phil Collins all rolled together. He would not tell us the kid's Chinese name, which was weird. At one point while we were talking, I referenced Phil, and he goes, "No, Phil Collins," as all one word. Every time we talked about Phil, he made it very clear that the kid's name was Phil Collins and not Phil. The end. There was an R relationships post about a guy who had an argument with his partner about sweet pickles having sugar in them, while she insisted that they were just pickles that are sweet. I always wanted to see if there was an update, but I could never find the post again. Why the hell didn't either of them bother to just read the ingredients list? This one comes from my mom, a Canadian, or American, based in Ontario, so we got no US channels. Anti-smoking cartoon from the 70s or 80s, where a guy is smoking and says, "I should quit. This will be my last cigarette if I see a woman in a fur coat." And one immediately walks by. So he says wearing green shoes. And one does. And then, walking a dog. On a diamond leash. Actually, it was a tiger. And then when a woman in a fur coat wearing green shoes walking a tiger on a diamond leash walks by, he crushes his cigarette up and the tagline goes, "What will it take for you to quit?" Been looking for it for ages and haven't been able to find it yet. Edit. Put in proper sequence. And clarified that it could have been on Canadian or American television. Based in Ontario. That sounds awesome. A desktop wallpaper I had back in 2009, 2010-ish. It was some digital art of a female with her face sticking halfway through a vertical waterline, with goldfish floating about. Her hand was also in the frame and she had thin gold hoop bracelets on. It was such a dreamy piece of art. I miss it. This one? This old French website that hosted these pixel clip art versions of Disney characters because the outlines were single pixels wide and there was no compression. Little me could save them and recolor or edit them in MS Paint easily. I basically made a whole drag and drop dress up game in paint using their Tinkerbell and Jasmine, like I don't have much use for it these days. But I look for it occasionally just for nostalgia purposes. Last time I used that site, I must have been like 12. It's been well over a decade.
Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.